Ladies and gentlemen, the regional head of supply and partnerships of Zomato, one of the biggest delivery apps in the region. Hi, Sayed.
Hi, how are you?
How are you? Sayed Munaf Ahmad is joining us. Sayed, I asked them to have a Q&A, and they said it was a power talk and a success story, and they had to have you talk. I have so many questions for you. First of all, congratulations on Zomato and really taking off during COVID, because I'm a lot heavier thanks to these delivery apps, and thank you to Zomato. So for anybody who's in a lockdown, like in Lebanon right now, these delivery apps really, they've been, it's sad to say, but they've been the highlight of these COVID-19 pandemic and lockdowns, because nobody can exit and go to restaurants the way they used to. So delivery apps such as Zomato have really taken off. They were already doing well and they've taken off. And I leave the floor to you to talk about the success story. Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. And we take this responsibility very seriously. So let me just get straight into what helped us overcome some of the challenges of the pandemic. As with any situation of crisis, we tend to go back to our first principles. And at Zomato, our first principle is customer obsession. And in our business, we have two sets of customers. One is obviously the end user, like yourself and me, and also what we call merchants, or our restaurant partners. So what we found during the pandemic is that our merchant partners were really looking forward to new ways of increasing revenue, and also struggling with cash flow. So to help them, we actually started out with some rebates, and actually provided some of our merchant partners with working capital loans to help minimize the effects of the pandemic. In terms of new revenue channels, we allowed restaurants that were predominantly doing dine-in to activate delivery, so that they could just remain open and provide food to consumers. Apart from that, we also gave them free marketing boosts, just so that they could kind of keep getting that revenue in. One interesting outcome of the pandemic was a lot of people trying to cook at home, and how our restaurant partners were able to leverage on this was to prepare meal kits, whereby you could provide raw materials or ingredients for the said meal that could be delivered to the user, and the user could cook that meal themselves at home. Again, another stream of revenue that was previously unexplored by most restaurants. Finally, for the users that were still comfortable with going out and dining out, we came up with contactless dining, which is where you could go into a restaurant, be able to look at the menu, order the items, and pay for it without actually touching anything. So on our app, we created a virtual menu, a virtual ordering station, and a virtual payment mechanism, so that you wouldn't have to touch the menu, etc. So those are some of the methods by which we helped our merchants. For our users, we found that search incidences for hygiene and safety kind of shot through the roof, as one would expect. So we tried to understand from them what it is that they were looking for. And we found that they were really looking for a safe and hygienic method of still being able to place orders online. So what we then did was, we first of all educated all our restaurant partners on what the correct guidelines should be in terms of handling food, preparing that food, and delivering that food. And then we communicated that to our restaurants at every stage of the journey, which means that a user, while placing an order, could know what the temperature was of the person who was preparing the food, and who handled the food, and who actually delivered the food. So we had regular touch points for where temperature was recorded, and we communicated this to our users. This actually helped give our users a huge sense of relief, because they knew that at every touch point, the food was, the hygienic standards were being met. Apart from this, we also activated contactless delivery, which you all know really took off during the pandemic, where the food was delivered to your location at a safe distance from the door, so you didn't have to interact with any delivery rider as such. So again, going back to our first principle, customer obsession, so really listening to your customer and trying to exceed on their expectation would be what our first principle was. Moving on from there, we also spent a lot of time in continuous learning, which means on two sides. One is learning from what the user wanted and adapting it on our app, but more importantly for our team, who previously had the liberty to physically interact with one another, with their colleagues, and also with the restaurant partners. So we had to completely shift to working remotely. Since the pandemic started, we've been working 100% remotely, and it required a lot of scaling up in a very quick time to kind of be able to deliver the same output while working remotely. So I think continuous learning is a really important principle. Thirdly, I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with this. We call this done is better than perfect. Now, what that means is that when we have an idea or a product or a concept, we tend to keep working on it till we think it's perfect, and only then do we take it to market. But at Zomato, what we do is we kind of build a bare bone idea, take it to market, and then basis the feedback of our end user, we tend to iterate on it and make it perfect. So this helps us to kind of make sure that we're aligned to what our users want, and also keep innovating and moving on to the next best thing. So this would be my one piece of advice to the entrepreneurs out there, which is to really take it to market, get the feedback, and then iterate. Finally, what we call control plus R, which means refresh and reprioritize. So don't be afraid of sunk cost and the time and energy spent behind a project. If it's not working, move on. So find the next best thing, take the feedback from that, and move on. This ensures that your organization remains dynamic and agile.